looking at love as an action also makes it more real and more grounded. Sometimes feelings come and go, but the things we do for others, being there when they need us, standing by them through tough times, or just making an effort are what really builds trust and connection.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast with your host, Raghunath, and special co-host today, Henry Schoellkopf. It's Monday, June 16th, episode 1626. Welcome to the show. Welcome, everybody. It's Monday. We're here. Kostuba's taking a break today. We had an ecstatic, exhausting weekend in the rain at Ratha Yatra. Yeah. You know what? It just worked out well, and I really want to thank everybody coming down to New York City's Ratha Yatra, despite the inclement weather. I found that the weather worked for us. Everybody gathered together. We went under the tent. We got real close, and we just started singing. And then so many people just stood in the rain. A lot of people said, I didn't even notice the rain. It was like that. I noticed it because I was sort of sitting in a puddle, but it was a very sort of a magical experience. Got to meet lots of people we'd never see before. Kostuba, he was saying he was at the festivities in Times Square the day before, and he was really enjoying. So many people are coming up to him that he never met before. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. Nityananda Chandra, Krishna Mai, Sri Rupa, Yvette Elizabeth, all helping with the tent and getting things together. We're really in debt. And it just really, our community showed up. Maya sang, Damodar Priya sang, Amalini sang, Seth sang, Krishna Chaitanya, Chandra Bhaga all showed up. Yeah, and all the Alachua boys showed up rocking it hard on percussion. It was really nice. It was really nice. Mara stayed back. Someone's got to stay back and do all the tough work. And Mara, I just want you to know I appreciate you.
Thanks, Prabhu.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Do a lot of back the matter of fact, it's one of the themes of today's podcast.
Appreciating me?
Yeah, it's Appreciating Mara Day. That's what it is. Although I was claiming the week for myself because it's Father's Day, and I would appreciate the entire week.
You get the weekend, that was it.
I get the weekend?
Yeah.
That was it? I sort of. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. All I really wanted to do on Father's Day was mow the lawn. That's like, I was like, this is my happy place.
Did you get to mow yesterday? You did.
I did get to mow. Yes, I did.
Good.
Okay. You got some announcements, Miss Mara, before we switch you out with Henry?
Yeah, I do. We still have some spaces left for Raghunath's pilgrimage in sacred India, October 29th through November 11th. We're going to Govardhan Hill, Jaipur, Devaprayag, Rishikesh, Haridwar. Go to Raghunath.yoga for more information and go to pilgrimage.
Why do you like pilgrimage, Mara? You've been on many pilgrimages.
Well, it's funny because initially I was nervous about going on pilgrimage. I was like, I don't think I'm going to like it. I don't like traveling with a big group of people.
Yeah, that's what people often say, like, well, because you're a traveler.
Yeah, I was like, I like to just go by myself. It's quicker, it's easier,
deal with a bunch of people.
But actually being on pilgrimage with a big group of people is amazing because we sit down, we do kirtans everywhere. It's like changes the whole atmosphere. All the locals come out, especially in the temples and things, Rajasthan especially. It's one of my favorite places.
And they get inspired by your inspiration. I'm looking at Lori Pag and the Chief right now. These guys have been on pilgrimage with us so many times that it's the numbers actually work for you. And also, you've got a bunch of like-minded people. It's just not like a random bunch of people who want to go to the Caribbean on a cruise. It's a bunch of people very focused on their spiritual life. And sometimes you might know a little bit more than someone. Sometimes you might know a little less than some people. So some people are lifting you up while you're lifting other people up. And it's sort of like magical. And just having that experience in these holy places and watch people have their breakthroughs, breakdowns, It's not like going on a Disney cruise, you know?
No, it's not.
So anyway, check that out at raghunath.yoga. And
Yeah.
that leads us to our teacher training is also happening in January. And it's going to be really good this year.
It starts December 31st this year.
December 31st, it starts 2026. And that's the entire month. We're also doing kirtan training. And we're also doing our Wisdom of the Sages training. That's only 12 days. So if you want to come for a short amount of time, you come for 12 days. And you do the Wisdom of the Sages training. And that's a great opportunity to hang with all of us.
Being at the Govardhan Eco Village, I mean, that place gets more and more incredible every single year.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Shall we dive in?
Let's dive in. Let's switch out you, my dear, for Mr. Henry.
Oh, we have an anonymous message here that I
Anonymous
also like to share with
message.
announcements.
This is from Tarun, my 11-year-old, who says, remember to subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications. He's my social media genius. Thank you, Tarun, for that. Tarun is back. We're excited. Hey, Henry, welcome. It's great to have you. So, Mara, help him get on screen here. All right. Okay, there's your beautiful face, Henry. How are you? Henry, if you don't know Henry's one of our longtime listeners, but he's also a longtime friend, devotee friend of mine. We've met each other in 1988. Not your first time in India. How many times have you gone to India?
25 times. I first went in 78.
You got to speak right into
25. I went to India 25 times over a 30-year period between 78 and 2008. And meeting Raghunath in 1988 was a pivotal moment for me because I was alone in my room and this man knocked on the door and introduced himself. And I didn't know that I didn't know how it was going to go, but within a half an hour, we became lifelong friends. And I want to say I'm very grateful to Raghunath and Mira and Kastuba for having this wonderful podcast every day, giving me a wonderful place to go, keep my consciousness clear. And thank you so much.
Well, if you've read my book, Punk to Monk, Henry was like he shows up in a few chapters because when we were monks, you're only 10 years older than me, right? I think I'm 59. You're 69, 68.
Yeah, I'm 68 years old. Yeah.
Okay. I just thought I'd share your age. That's old. You know, you're old. I'm old. We're walking around. We were friends when I was 22 and you were 32. Isn't that hard to believe?
It is.
And now he's become like an uncle to my children. But it's like these longtime spiritual friends that you can look back and you remember, wow, I was going through this at the time. You were there for me, and back and forth. And when we were young monks, Henry had a big house in Washington, D.C., and he said, you know, you're trying to write a record because we were in the band Shelter. He said, you're trying to write a record. It's like, how are you going to do it in the temple? Just come to my house. And he put us up in his house. And he built like a practice studio for us in his house. And that's where he wrote the Shelter Attaining the Supreme record. And we were lovingly cooked for because Yamuna Devi, the famous Yamuna Devi, who sang the Govinda song, who wrote the world famous Lord Krishna's Kazin, was staying with him, also like working on a project, which was her second cookbook. And we got to... First of all, she would do the whole morning program for us every day. She'd worship the deities. She'd sing to us. She'd give us class every morning. We had such a charmed brahmachari life, I will say, but by your mercy. And
it was so much fun. It was so much fun having the house with all that excitement going on. It was the happiest time of my life. But actually, my life keeps getting happier because this process makes one happier every day.
It really does. It really does. And that house of yours that you grew up in, that was your family house, it became a... devotees would just stop in there all the time. Even when we were there, we had Mukunda Maharaj coming. So between Mukunda Maharaj, who was one of the original devotees, Yamuna Devi, who's one of the original devotees, it was just like, and then Kim Murray, right, who's one of the old Prabhupada students. It just became like, it was like being at 26 Second Avenue because they just relished these stories. And we were just like young devotees, and we just got to like be flies on the wall and watch all this stuff. And you were the host, you were the master host And it was just great. And you had that powerful association with Yamuna Devi. You want to share anything about her? Because we got you here. And you probably had more association with Yamuna Devi than many people had. And she was just like an inspirational person whoever met her.
Well, I have to thank Kim Waters Murray, who introduced me to Yamuna Devi, took me over to her apartment. She was living in Georgetown, not far from me for a while, and then she started inviting me over for events at her house, and we became friends, and then we met in India, and we traveled through India together. I got to take her and introduce her to B.G. Sharma. That was one of the greatest moments of our life, and he took us all to
Srinathji.
Srinathji, and it was just amazing. And then somehow that evolved into her moving into my house and worshiping her wonderful deities there, and so we became a full temple at my house.
If you don't, a little backstory with that. If Henry just mentioned B.G. Sharma, if you don't know who that is, he was one of probably the most famous and the most impressive and prolific artists in Rajasthan. And he was sort of based in Udaipur. He did a lot of the paintings in the Srinathji temple. And now, and Henry was one of the first persons, because Kim's husband brought BG to America, I think, or brought his artwork to America. Did he come to America?
He did come to America. Well, I'd met him first in 1983 at his home in Udaipur and purchased my first piece of work from him. Chris took me there. Chris introduced me to B.G. Sharma, and we became friends immediately because I'd just come from Vrindavan, and we just bonded on a love for Krishna. He could tell I'd fallen in love with Krishna.
And it's great that you say that, because this is the theme of today's show. Here's our nugget for today. Are you ready? It's just this right here. Right in those quotes, Henry. Are you ready?
Love isn't a feeling, it's an action.
That's our daily nugget today. When someone says love isn't a feeling, it's an action, they're basically saying that love isn't just about these warm, fuzzy, sentimental feelings we get when we're happy or excited about someone, some romantic feeling. Instead, real love shows up in what we do, like how we listen, right? How we support, how we make sacrifices for someone else. Those little or big acts of kindness and care actually prove that you love somebody. More than just a sentiment. We use this word sentiment. Sentimental means it's based on the senses and the menta, right? The senses and the menta, the senses and the mind, right? But this is sort of like showing, and we use the word cheaply, don't we? I love her. I love that, right? What does that mean? You love. Actually, in that context, love is almost like a spectrum. To say I love this, French fries, and to say I love a woman because a woman walks in with beautiful hair, I say I love her. Or someone who actually cares for a person. There's the famous statement, someone went to a psychiatrist and said, I don't love my wife anymore. And he just said, well, then love her. Then love her. Like, it's an action. It's not just a feeling. Looking at love as an action also makes it more real and more grounded. Sometimes feelings come and go, but the things we do for others, being there when they need us, standing by them through tough times, or just making an effort, are what really builds trust and connection. So this is our theme today, because even the concept of loving God is sort of nebulous, vague, an enigma. Like, what does that mean? Like, I love you. I mean, I grew up with this concept of you should love God. And therefore, it's sort of like, well, what does that mean? Well, God's got this power. I'm sort of tiny. And therefore, I'm going to just pray to God for stuff. But if I came to you for stuff on a regular basis, hey, give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this. I know you got some power. I know you got some money. I know you got that house. Give me this. It doesn't translate to love. It just translates that you're like this human Amazon Prime that I'm expecting to just send me stuff on a regular basis. I mean, there's a respect there. I mean, I'm going to you, I'm accepting you as a person, but it's almost like a teenager's like, Dad, can I borrow $10? Can I borrow $5? Can I borrow this? Can I borrow that? And the fatherly or motherly person wants to supply out of love, but there's a shift when the kid starts reciprocating with the father.
Well, real bhakti yoga is like the level of love that you can develop from Krishna. Over the years, it just grows and grows, and it's very subtle and it's unlimited, and it becomes an incredibly powerful feeling in the solar plexus where you just feel so happy and satisfied all the time. And and it's a secret. But it's an open secret, and it's there. It's available for all of us.
It's an open secret. I like that. I took out the kids, Tarun and Rocco and Tommy Fawcett, and we went to get some vegan donuts. And immediately Tommy was like, "Let me pay for this." And then Rocco goes, "No, I want to pay for it." It was Father's Day. And it was like, that was a sign of like, it's easier to just let the dad pay for it. But when the kid wants to volunteer their own cash, and for kids, $20 or whatever it costs for donuts, that's a lot for a kid, So it was just like, it made me feel better as a father. The same is true with our relationship with Krishna. So there's this idea of, I want to, and that's why there's the ultimate materialism. And sometimes this is how I explain it to people. Real materialism means I'm working hard and I'm getting what I want because I worked hard for it. There's no higher authority. It's because I'm doing the work. I'm showing up. I'm a self-made man. And so that is like coming into your house. Suppose I went to your house and I throw a party and I start just taking all the resources that's in your house. I've done this before, so that's why you're laughing. Going through your refrigerator, going through your clothes, trying on your clothes, driving your car around. And when people say, whose stuff is this? I was like, it's just here. And this is what we do in the material world. We take the resources of God, but we don't want God. We take the opulences of God, but we don't want God in the picture. And spiritual life means I start to accept that there's a higher authority. So the first analogy I gave where I'm approaching Dad, can I borrow $20? Henry, can I borrow your car? Henry, can you loan me some money? Henry, can you, right? When I'm approaching you, I'm still accepting that there's an authority, there's a higher power. And we would call that karma yoga. It's a type of karma yoga where I'm working in this world, I'm accepting there's a higher power, and I'm asking the higher power for stuff, and I want to use the stuff in His service, but I also want to use it because I want this stuff. And it's a little bit lesser than I am the center. Everything is mine, where I've actually just taken it. I've just stolen the car, and I've ignored that there is a source of the car. There's a proprietor of the car. What do you think of that?
I agree with that 100%.
And then Bhakti Yoga would be taking it to the next level where you say, hey, Dad, I'm going to clean the kitchen. I know you made me dinner and everything. And I'm thinking, well, you're going to clean the kitchen. What do you want from that? Do you want to borrow the car? No, I just want to clean the kitchen because I appreciate you. All right. Right. Like, yeah. All right. Hey, Henry, I made you lunch. Oh, really? What do you want? What do you want? Nothing. I just made you lunch because I love you. What do you want? Right. And in the material world, we're always skeptical of what people want when someone's nice to us, because people are oftentimes trying to get something out of us, finagle something out of us. But when you actually say, I just want to make you dinner, I'm just happy you're here, that mood comes through. Like when Mara cooks for us yesterday. There's just a lot of love in that cooking. It's not like she's hoping to get something out of that. She just like enjoys cooking and taking care of us. It's a very sweet gesture. That is bhakti. When we are just saying, Krishna, I just want to serve you. Why? Because I have such deep appreciation for you. And again, I'd always say this thing about the Fibonacci spiral. I don't know the actual definition of Fibonacci spiral, but from the very tiny center of that spiral, like on a conch shell or, a seashell, there's an exact mathematical configuration where everything is perfectly in radiant distance. I don't know how you explain it. And as it gets bigger, it's still perfectly help me out here. You're the co-host here. You got to help me fit perfectly. What, Henry? What is that thing?
Well, I think of service, and we think of what we can do to serve. And my skills are I'm a really good driver, I have a nice car, and I'm always on time. So I've literally picked up hundreds of times. I've gone on trips to the airport to pick up devotees and serve them and make them feel comfortable and welcome them to the Washington. And it was just it's subtle and it's quiet, but
You know what?
it works.
That is another great. It's a squirrel because I was trying to get information out of you about my Fibonacci spiral analogy, but now I know how Kastuba feels. But but I will say, yeah, that is something very beautiful because you like to sometimes take those roles as menial, and we see that a lot when people come to the farm. They do some menial service, something that's like way, below their pay grade. They're so much more qualified, but they're doing something menial because it's just like, how can I serve here? What is necessary here? It's not like you're showing up and say, well, this is what I want to do. It's like, what do you need? That mood of what do you need is very beautiful. I was trying to get to this point, though, about that Fibonacci spiral, because from the tiniest view of that spiral to the most grandest view, that ratio is perfect. Thank you, Sammy Gowan. That ratio is perfect. And so as we serve in this world, whether it's, Rocco, I want to pay for your vegan donuts on Father's Day, or whether it's you wanting to do some little service, or whether it's the service to God in the biggest picture, that desire to render love is there. And we can understand service in this world. We can understand service in the spiritual world in service to this world. I want nothing, Dad. I don't want the car from you. I'm just appreciating what you do for me. In that appreciation, we can understand our relationship in pure devotional service.
Definitely.
Definitely.
It's very satisfying, deeply satisfying.
Deeply satisfying. Well, they say that Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kami, Sakalaya, Shanta, that all these other yoga systems are meant to connect us with higher powers, to source. So even the concept of I'm praying to you for something is still a connection. It just means I'm accepting that I'm not the center. The whole idea of the self-made man is I did it myself. That's an illusion. It's I did it by the mercy, right? There's a lot of people who do a lot of things themselves and they fail tremendously. It's out of our hands, the results of what we're doing. I'm not saying don't work for things, but it's one of the factors of what we get of our fruits. The other is our destiny, our karma, the time, place, and circumstance, and ultimately the desire of the Lord, right? But have you ever had this time where you feel like, man, Krishna should give this, or I should be getting this, but you don't get it? But in retrospect, when you look back, you're like, thank God I didn't get that.
Well, you just said something about failing miserably, but if you look at the history of all the great people that have done amazing things materially, you'll see that they may have had great, epic failures leading up, multiple epic failures leading up to that great thing. So never regret anything that's happened in your life. It's all part of the program. It's all part of your lesson to bring you right here today. So you're listening to this podcast. That's where you're meant to be.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And also, the whole Bhagavad Gita is a lesson about there's no failure. When I'm working in devotion, there's no failure.
True.
Even if everything goes wrong, there's no failure. It's raining on our Ratha Yatra. It's pouring rain. It's just like, it's a failure. Like if that was like the Memorial Day parade or something, that would be a failure. It's like, it's rain. We even have that expression. It's rain. It's raining on the parade. Don't rain on my parade. But there was transcendence there. There was transcendence. There was song. There was joy. I saw, a lot of our Zoomers there, like Amy Steller and Krishna and Mayi and Maya. They were all in bliss out there, singing despite the situation. And it's not like we were all getting paid for it. No one was getting paid nothing for it. We were just there in the joy of loving Krishna.
It's so much fun. It's
just fun.
Actually fun.
It was fun. All right, so we're going to take this right now because I'll just keep talking. Let's take this to the shloka today. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before we start in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the most human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki, by regular attendance in class in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees. All that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Agyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Madatam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. You could really do a dramatic reading of this pranam, you know. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. How dark? How dark, Henry? Were you born in?
It's very dark.
Why? What was making your birth dark? I mean, you had good parents. You had loving parents.
Well, it was 1956. It was an archaic hospital that doesn't even exist anymore. Who knew what they were doing with my little newborn body?
Sure. Okay. This is reading from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 2, Text 37. This is a very beautiful verse. You want to read it?
Even while engaged in various activities, devotees whose minds are completely absorbed at your lotus feet and who constantly hear, chant, contemplate, and cause others to remember your transcendental names and forms are always on the transcendental platform, and thus they can understand the supreme personality of Godhead.
Yeah, it's hinting towards, and the purport does, it hints towards what is love? What do you say to God? How do you love God? You know? And people can really say, I have this feeling overwhelmed where I never got that within Christianity. I never understood, like, the people went from, like, I've taken 100. I had a roommate in college that said, I took 100 trips of acid, and then I just decided one day I'd turn my life over to Jesus, and I stopped taking acid, and now I love Jesus. I was like, that's all you got to do? You just got to say, I love you, and now I love you? Like, what is the, is there and maybe there is, but here it's going to tell you how to love a person. And we have this whole concept. Some people probably at some points called it the regulative principles, Shravanam Kirtanam. Here's what it says in the purport. How bhakti yoga can be practiced is explained in this verse. Rupa Goswami has said that anyone who has dedicated their life to the service of the Lord by his activities, his mind, and his words may stay in any condition of life. That means you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to say, okay, I have these nice clothes on. I'm going to switch off to these rags and walk around like a mendicant. You don't have to do that. You can stay in any condition of life. It's not your position in life. It's not your job. It's not your family. Some people think, well, my family is materialistic. I got to leave my family. You don't have to do that. And yet is no longer actually conditioned, but is liberated, even though such a devotee is in a material body. He has nothing to do with this body, for they are transcendentally situated. Then they quote this beautiful verse, Narayana para sarve nakutaschana bibyati. Because a devotee is engaged in transcendental activities, they're not afraid of being material embodied. So, let's see, I'm going to just read a little more. Illustrating this liberated position, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prayed, Mama janmani janmani ishvare bhavatad bhaktira haituki tvayi. All I want is your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. Even if a devotee by the supreme will of the Lord takes birth in the material world, they continue his devotional service. And they use the analogy of King Bart. King Bart was interesting because he was at this level, and this is another thing. It's like there's nuances of spiritual advancement. It's not just like I'm an illusion and now I'm liberated. There's like nuances. I mentioned that in my book. I was like confused because my mother says she's Christian, but she watches Jeopardy on TV. Does that is she going to go to heaven? Is she going to go to the exact same place St. Francis of Assisi is going to do, or these Christian monks that are beating themselves with a stick? It's like, is that fair that my mom gets to watch Jeopardy while these other priests are doing extreme penances, living in isolated islands in Greece? So it's like, what is it? Are there nuanced levels of spirituality? And the Vedas say, yeah. There's very, very high levels where you're not even in this world anymore. You're embodied. And that's what this verse also talks about. You're embodied, but you're not of the body anymore. Why? Because you're taking all your thoughts, which, I think of God, but I also think of stuff. I also think of adventure. I also think of the garden. I also think all the stuff that's running through my head. Then you got Mara, who thinks of God and thinks of the garden and also thinks of the garden and also thinks of purchasing more plants and also thinks of making cuttings and growing more plants and also thinks of cooking and then cooking stuff from the garden. So, and then there's people who are thinking of things that are really of lower caliber. You ever think of things of lower caliber, Henry?
Unfortunately, all the time. That's the thing, but we have to develop an inner life. We develop an inner life of satisfaction, and then we're not hankering for anything from the outside.
It's almost like the pie chart of what you're thinking of today. Wouldn't you love to see? Imagine like I'm seeing all these boxes on Zoom. I'm looking at Dan Murphy, David Houseworth, Jamie Stepp, the Chief. Imagine if every time I see their face, I just saw a pie chart of what they're thinking of today. How much of that pie? Would it be a thin sliver of pie or a big fat half of the pie? All of the pie? The blue piece of the pie is Krishna. And then, you could have all types of thoughts going on. Gardening, cooking, illicit thoughts, criminal thoughts, And the interesting thing is whatever we put in the ingredients, right? If Mara's making a pie, and I throw in a rat in that pie. Yeah, that's a pretty gross analogy, but you get the idea. That means there's a rat in the pie, right? Even if half the pie didn't. Anyway, it's a gross analogy before 8 o'clock. But the point is this. To the degree that I put in poison, the pie becomes poison.
Well, you always talk about what we put in our ears is so important because our ears are open and they're taking everything in, and we don't want to hear negativity. And that's why this podcast is so important, because we can get up every morning and every day we can hear these wonderful words from Raghunath and Kaustubha and Mira, which are going to bring us to a higher level. That's what we want.
That's because they're not our words. Truthfully, we all become like this. We all just read, and then when we stop reading, because we have read and our mind is filled with these things, these stories, these lessons, these things, they start to flow out of us. And when you start, that will work with anything. If I listen to comedy, or if I listen to true crime, or if I listen to my plants podcast, then when I open my mouth, I'm going to start talking about plants and cuttings and, what do you call them? Cuttings, clippings, propagating, right? And seedlings and watering and all that's going to come out of my mouth. And here's some pie charts here right now. People are putting on the message board. and this is why there's also these very risky things that Prabhupada or the guru will say. They'll say, we be careful with alcohol. Why? Because these things can bring the consciousness down hard. They're addictive things. So there's all these regulations in any spiritual practice. Just like if you're in a practice of physical fitness, there's certain things. It's not great to take drugs or alcohol. It's just not going to go well with what you want to accomplish to be a virtuoso at your sport.
Yeah, if you want to be a great soccer player, you got to do what the coach says. And Prabhupada's the coach, and he's going to tell us what to do with our consciousness and how to get it to the right place. So listen very carefully to the words of Srila Prabhupada, and it's the regulative principles of freedom. You become free from bad habits that are slowing you down.
It's interesting because all the bad habits almost have the shiniest bait, isn't it? Oh, come on, Henry.
I'm trying.
And I bet because you grew up in a wealthy family, when did you get your first car?
When I was 16, I got a beautiful red Porsche.
That it doesn't get more shiny bait than a 16-year-old getting a red Porsche. Did you wreck it?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
You took care of it.
Yeah, somehow my parents taught me to really one thing I've had a habit of really taking good care of everything my parents gave me. I'm a caretaker kind of person.
You are. That's a sattvic quality I think you have. You're very into maintenance, right?
Yes, yes.
But they can. And it's a great example. Like your good karma doesn't have to ruin your life. It could actually enhance your life. It can enhance your spiritual life. I mean, how many times have you picked up sadhus from the airports in a Rolls Royce?
It's been fantastic, actually. I mean, and these are such satisfying things to do.
But I'm sure there's other people who've had that same Porsche and used it for degradation.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say every moment's been perfect, but somehow I found a better path. I found a better way, as you say in your songs. We found a better way.
We had it was so funny. I had met Henry in 1988, but then I saw him at Ratha Yatra in 1991, and I'm always quick to. For better or for worse. I guess in a material concept, people could say, "Oh, you're just using me." I think. Hear me out on this one. I've been accused of using people, but this is what we do as devotees, and this is what we pray for as devotees. I pray on a regular basis, "Dear Krishna, use me. Please engage me in your." Our whole mantra is, "Please engage me in your service. Please use me for something transcendental." So I saw you at that Ratha Yatra, and I said, "Henry, I haven't seen you in a while." And you were videotaping, and you were really into videotaping at that time. And I said, "Why don't you come on tour with us and videotape our tour, and you can make a tour video?" And for me, I saw a person with a talent, and I thought, why don't you engage it in shooting this stuff? We'll promote the band, we'll promote Krishna's message. And you said, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I know you said, when does it start?
Yeah, he said, when does it start? And you said, well, in about 3 hours in Philly. And I said,
no, it was at the bank in New York. I think the next day we went to Philly.
So anyway, I just dropped everything and I went and I followed shelter. Like there was an incredibly wonderful vector in my life in that year of 92. And thanks, Krishna just sent Raghunath right in front of me and he engaged me and I've been grateful to him ever since. And I must say, my affection and respect for him grows all the time. When I read the book, I couldn't even believe it. I mean, how can I even be so fortunate to have such a great man as my friend?
Prabhu, come on. I feel he's saying this, but I look at him as a senior devotee in my life. He's been to Vrindavan before me. I love him. But I will say this. If you're hanging out with me, expect to get used. But I'll use you in Krishna service. And I'll use myself in Krishna service in the same time. And you know what? Me and Mary were just talking yesterday because so many sadhus and holy people have come to the farm this year, and so many students have come to the farm. And truthfully, Mara, it's been nonstop. We just had, the 10 people from Alachua. We have sadhus and swamis. Raghunath Swami is doing an initiation here next week. And we're having programs all the time. And when no one's here, we just do a kirtan. It's just exhausting. And then it just ends. And then we go to Italy. It's not a vacation. We're hosting 60 people. We're leaving a retreat at our house to host another retreat. And I was just thinking about it. We are materially, in one sense, exhausted, but spiritually, Krishna's giving us a full-time 24/7 engagement. Almost like, how blessed is that? How blessed is it to have nothing else to do except be fully engaged in Krishna's service?
The ultimate blessing.
It's the ultimate blessing. It's like being used in Krishna's service, and it's what we're actually praying for when we say the Maha Mantra. And if I feel like any resentment, and I see devotees come out like this sometimes, like, oh, this wasn't fair. I wasn't this wasn't right. Guess what? If you're doing seva and you're expecting something in return, you're not doing seva. You know what I mean? And me too. Me too. It's not like anyone who comes here and does seva. We have seva retreats. But if you're expecting something more out of that, then you're doing it with the wrong intention. Save that intention for the material world. Put in your time, get your paycheck. Hey, I worked 3.5 hours. I want 3.5 hours of pay. Save that for the material world. It works. In the spiritual world, come clean. In the come clean and say, I'm here. I don't want anything back. I did this as an offering. And then you might feel, well, my guru, he fell down, or my guru wasn't sincere. Or Krishna, see, you're not doing this necessarily to please a person. You're here doing this to serve the supreme person. And Krishna sees your seva. Suppose we're doing Super Soul Farm, but I'm secretly a criminal. I'm secretly a drug addict. I'm secretly a philanderer. I'm secretly all these things, but you're rendering service, and we're getting together, and everybody's having kirtan and stuff like that, but I'm secretly broken and corrupt. So many people come and render service here. The Chief, Jamie Step Dojo, Dan Murphy, Lori Pag, all you guys come and render service. Do you think it's very easy to say, you know what? I've rendered all this service, and I found out that Raghunath, son of a gun. Do you think all your service is wasted?
Definitely not.
No. Your service was an offering to Krishna, and Krishna sees that mindful, loving service that you're offering. That's a show of love. You're here, a community of devotees are coming together to hear and chant and serve with love. Krishna sees that service. And Krishna inspires people to inspire you. It's beautiful. You inspire me. It's not always who got into bhakti first. It's like, Mara, her selfless service, even though she could say, well, Raghunath, I got into bhakti from you. You inspire me in bhakti. Mara inspires me in bhakti. And you've been into bhakti longer than me, but you've inspired me in bhakti. And Krishna will tag certain people to give you inspiration to pull you on this path. And if a person does fall away, if a person does become corrupt, don't write them off as they're 100% corrupt. I've been cheated. I've been used. We're praying to be used. That should be our sincere. We're praying to be used. We want to be corrected. My problem is I've got such a massive ego. I'm just looking to find fault in the system so I can be right and they're all wrong. So I can be right and say, aha, this person was never sincere. This person has no sincerity. And that lets me off the hook. I was right. We live in this world where I want to be right all the time.
Our ego is always telling us that we're the most important person and we're in the center, and we've got to tamp that down, and we want to serve. But that's the most happy, safe, comfortable position, is to be serving.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go on with this. I'm just going to read that verse again because it's actually very powerful. Even while engaged in various activities, devotees whose minds are completely absorbed at your lotus feet and who constantly hear, chant, contemplate, and cause others to remember your transcendental names and forms are always on the transcendental platform, and thus they can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I was at our tent, and with all this stuff going on, I just sat there with the kirtan people, and I just sang the entire time. I didn't move from that spot. I didn't speak to Kaustubha once that day, except on the phone. But I saw him, and he was doing his thing. But I felt like Kaustubha's on the transcendental platform. He's doing his thing. I know he's not there for profit, distinction, or adoration. He's there to render service. And so that's what the devotees do. They're putting themselves in this position where they can not only remembers Krishna's activities, speak of Krishna's pastimes, but also this other very cool part of this verse is cause other people, right, who constantly hear, chant, contemplate, and cause others to remember your transcendental names and forms. These people are always on the transcendental platform. That's my Kaustubha appreciation for the day. Kastuba's back tomorrow, by the way. All right, text 38. Prabhu, would you like to read this?
O Lord, we are fortunate because the heavy burden of the demons upon this earth is immediately removed by your appearance. Indeed, we are certainly fortunate, for we shall be able to see upon this earth and in the heavenly planets the marks of the lotus, conch shell, club, disc that adorn your lotus feet.
Very good. So those are the Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. You should all memorize those. Shankha, Chakra, Gada, and the Padma. The conch, the wheel, like that's the weapon. These are the two. These are the four things Lord Vishnu carries, but they're also marks, almost like if you ever see someone's palm, they have these marks on the hand. The palm reader will say, "Oh, that's the star of wisdom," or they'll say that's the headline or the love line or the stuff like that. So there's actually markings. I don't know if they actually look like a conch shell or a club, but those are at least symbolic for them. And there's, subtle sciences of reading a palm or reading a face reading or foot reading. So Krishna had this Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. But when I read this, I thought of Ratha Yatra again. We are fortunate because the heavy burden of the demons upon this earth is immediately removed. Here we are at Washington Square Park. When I was growing up, that park was famous for people selling drugs. I mean, it was also people, playing guitar and singing, but it was also sort of like a low vibe environment, a low vibe, right? Do you?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You remember? Did you used to go to Washington Square Park when you were a kid?
The first time I ever went was with the Ratha Yatra.
Okay. So you don't have the material calculation of it. I mean, it was a park in the middle of a busy city. So in that sense, I liked it. It was pleasant. It was a gradation of sattva because there were trees and there was, of course, it wasn't original. It was like a horrible cemetery, I think, where they put bodies of plague. Look that up, Mara. Washington Square Park Cemetery. It was some type of something horrible was there. And they put a park on top of it. And now it's like prime real estate. And NYU, I think, owns all the real estate around it. But it's still falling into these goodness, passion, and ignorance, the material world. When the Ratha Yatra festival comes, you don't feel like you're of this world anymore. You feel within the boundaries, you feel like something very wonderful is happening in this park. Whatever demonic things happened here in the past, whatever is going on here in the material world, you feel like you're in the spiritual world. And you were at Times Square on the
I
day.
was at Times Square. The devotees had an amazing kirtan at Times Square on Friday evening.
And Times Square is, well, when I was growing up, we used to go to Times Square. I went there when I was 9 years old to watch the ball drop. That's where the ball drops for the New Year's Eve. They would always there was always like a weird New York City gang, like the first murder of the year. It was like a initiation into a gang. And it was always I can't believe my mother let me go to this thing. It was always very sketchy. Times Square now it's a little bit more organized, but Times Square was like notoriously in our generation, it was very skeevy. Skeevy is a slang word for,
It was a terrible place to go in the 80s. My goodness,
Yeah. How was the vibe there this time? I mean, I haven't really hung out in Times Square at night.
It's a real tourist center. No tourists came in the 70s and 80s. No tourists came to New York. It was just considered a dangerous place. And Times Square was very degraded. So there were no tourists. But, now it's just one of the centers of tourists from the world.
Mara's got some info over here. Oh, yeah, jump on a mic, Mara. We got to get to the bottom of this. What was going on in Washington Square Park, New York?
Well, there's 20,000. They think there's approximately 20,000 people buried there. Yeah.
20,000 people?
Isn't that shocking? Many of them were victims of yellow fever.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But it was called a potter's field, which I think is if people are poor and they don't have money the family doesn't have money to bury them, it's like a mass burial type thing.
This material world is a horrible place. Yellow fever.
I
don't even know what that is.
I never got that.
Me
I don't
either.
even know what it is, but my goodness, I don't want it.
Yeah, I don't want it.
But all civilizations, any great city you go to, it's built on top of other cities. They just go down and there's levels and levels of cities built there, London or Brussels or anything.
There's this place in Zurich, in downtown Zurich, for our Swiss listeners, Vivi Narayani and etc. But there's this place where you can actually see the layers of the city. They have like almost like a museum, either the Ottoman Empire or the, all these different. It's like the story of the world. Just invaders coming in, killing everybody, keeping certain people as slaves, and then taking all their cattle, taking all their grain storage, and building a civilization on top of that. And then we're civilized. We just like it's just a civilization of conquest and war. Thank God you and I never went to war.
Well, we were in a very lucky time. I mean, I guess I was one of the last people to have a draft card, and
You were drafted? I mean,
no, but I actually had to go, and I had to had a draft card with me when I turned 18, because they'd put you in jail if you couldn't show your draft card if you were over 18.
What do you mean put you in jail?
Well, you had to
like
have
if you
it.
got pulled over?
Well, yeah, I mean, theoretically, they weren't actually practicing it, but theoretically, once you turned 18, you had to get a draft card, and you had to have it on you at all times to prove that that you hadn't been drafted yet.
Were you too young for Vietnam?
I was just on the cusp.
Anyway, I can't remember how we got talking. We were on a roll there. And then Mara came in with the yellow fever info. Talking about marketing Krishna. Oh, we were talking about how the Ratha Yatra festival, you don't feel like you're of this world. Do we have time to read one more? Yeah, let's read one more verse. O Supreme Lord, you are not an ordinary living entity appearing in this material world as a result of fruitive activities. Therefore, your appearance or birth in this world has no other cause than your pleasure potency. Like, he's not born of karma. Male and female got together and then a baby came and the baby happened to be God. No, the Lord desires to come. Therefore, your appearance or birth in this world. Okay. Similarly, the living entities who are part of you have no cause for miseries like birth, death, and old age, except when these living entities are conducted by your external energy. Isn't that interesting? We don't have to suffer. We don't have to go through birth and death and old age, except when we opt into Maya. And that is the beauty of love. We can say, I love Krishna. I mean, I'm raising a bunch of teenagers. We live in a beautiful place. We do beautiful things. We eat beautiful food. We have a beautiful garden, Mara. We have a beautiful garden. We have beautiful spiritual vacations. Everything is good. Or they could just say, you know what? I want to do my own thing.
Teenagers or young people, you can talk to them till they're blue in the face and they won't listen, but they'll watch everything you do very carefully. And the best way to teach your kids is by the example of how you live. They will follow that.
How am I doing?
You're doing awesome.
But ultimately, it's up to them. Ultimately, the teenager just does what they want to do. And if they want to like reciprocate, things generally can work out good if you work out with the family. If they want to do their own thing, it'll work out too. It'll work out that they suffer, or work out that they blossom. It'll work out that they complicate their lives. It'll work out that they become successful. But if they, just like we get some good karma, there's people who work in the material world and they have great karma. And there's people who work in the material world and they suffer tremendously. But there's always a chance that's beyond good and bad karma, and that's spiritual life. I'm using the family as an analogy to our spiritual life. You can opt into the material world, and guess what? You might be successful in the material world. It doesn't mean you're going to fulfill the God-shaped hole in your heart. See, that's the problem. You can even become very, very successful, but you're still not of this material world. That's the problem with material success. There is no amount of material success that will fulfill that God-shaped hole. It just won't. You'll still be thinking, now what? Now what am I supposed to do with all this wealth, with all this power, with all this ability, with all this so-called freedom? How much freedom do I have? I could die at any minute. Can I actually be free in this world? And sometimes the success oftentimes it complicates our lives more and more and more. I mean, I'm sure you could argue, say, you know what? Hey, poverty complicates your life. That too. I'm not saying I'm saying every facet of the material world will complicate our lives. And sometimes you feel like a winner. Sometimes you feel like a loser. Sometimes people have that with their homes. You know, they feel like, I live in a great place. What a great neighborhood. What a great block. A tree-lined street in Brooklyn. This is the best. I got a big yard. You know, I've got a second home upstate. I could live in the city, but I go upstate. Sometimes people with their homes that they live in, they feel like winners. And sometimes people aren't living they live in a bad neighborhood. They live sort of a ghetto neighborhood. Crime is high. They don't like their landlord, and they feel like a loser. So this is the material world. We're winners, or we're losers, or we're a combination of both. The spiritual world is different. The spiritual world is, my Lord, I want to live where you want me to live. And you've seen devotees do this, right? You've seen devotees, they go into sometimes horrible situations to do their service.
Happiness is an internal arrangement. There's nothing you can do externally to make yourself happy. But if you have a good spiritual practice, you can make yourself happy inside and completely satisfied. And it doesn't matter whether you have a small kayak on a largest yacht in the world. Your internal happiness is what is where it's at.
That's a great analogy, isn't it? The kayak on a lake is actually very, very peaceful and blissful. Whereas yachts feasibly can be exhausting to maintain a yacht. You have to have a crew on a yacht. It costs money to fill it with diesel on a yacht, you know. That's a great analogy, as a matter of fact. But yeah, it is internal. And I really think that that's what if you really get into this Bhagavatam, this is what we're working on, the internal happiness. It might come with all this fluff around it and culture around it and fantastic stories around it. But whatever I got, and we're going to all be a different place. And sometimes we're going to get stuff, but then we're going to lose our stuff. Can I be happy without the stuff? Can I be happy with the stuff? It's not about the stuff. It's not about the seasons of life that we're going through. Because sometimes we have these winter seasons that are very, very cold and very, very brutal and very, very, it cuts away. And then sometimes we have this springtime in our life where the peonies of life are blooming everywhere and there's sweet scents. We don't want to lean into the good and we don't want to suffer from leaning into the bad. We want to find our peace, something separate than the good and the bad. And that's transcendental life. And that's the practice. Miss Mara, do you have some takeaways? Please welcome Miss Mara.
I do. I have a lot of takeaways today, actually.
Oh, that means, Henry, we said some things that are significant.
Take
Love
Look at us three.
Love shows up in what we do, our actions, not just our feelings.
Yeah, you got a comment. You got the mic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just asking God for stuff doesn't translate to love.
True that.
Cultivate the mood of what do you need?
Here.
Wait. What?
Cultivate-
Wait. Cultivate the mood of.
What do you need? Like, what does somebody, like serving other people? What do you need? What can I
What do
do
you
for
need?
Yeah.
What can I do for you?
Not like,
Cultivate
what do I need?
Okay. What?
know?
Cultivate the mood of. How about?
How can I serve?
How can I serve?
How much of the pie chart of the mind are we thinking of Krishna?
You know, I really like that analogy. I just sort of made it up on the spot.
I didn't like the rat in the pie.
I didn't like the rat in the pie. Yeah.
Little
You know why? Because occasionally I eat a rat. Meaning I'll like put something, my son just goes, what? I don't eat a rat, but I'll put something in my consciousness that's unsavory.
Oh.
You know what I
Like
mean?
a true crime podcast.
Like a true crime podcast.
Got
Because they sometimes have this shiny, come on, check it out. It's interesting. This is real world. Don't you want to know what the real world? You're living in your Krishna bubble. See what the real world's like. Okay. Murder.
Murder. Prabhupada is our consciousness coach to free us from our bad habits.
Thanks, Coach.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Coach.
Tamp down the ego and serve for happiness and fulfillment.
Tamping.
Jai.
Tamping.
We don't have to suffer except if we're opting in for Maya.
True.
Yeah. Don't check the Maya box.
No amount of material success will fulfill our God-shaped hole. And
Yeah, it'll make you feel maybe good, but it's
Maybe.
temporary. Maybe it might complicate your life.
and hanging out with Raghu, expect to get used for
I love
Krishna's
it. Yes, yes,
service.
yes,
For Krishna's service.
yes.
Oh, Krishna. Thanks, man. Let's see who's here. Come here, Tyrone. You want to get on here, the show here? My little boy's back.
That could be on like Raghu's ecstatic noises.
Murder. Thank you. Thank you. And Naveen Radha, our dancer and singer, is here. And Stromboli, G, are you going to come down for the initiation, Stromboli? He's like, what? I don't know. Talk to Kishore Gopi. DC Dubs, good morning. Martine from Maine. Ujwal Adhikari, Haribo, good to see you. Gandarbi, I didn't say good morning to any of these people. Gandarbi Kagiri and Hari, they were late. Marina Balan, good morning to you. And Shana Vegan Tracker, good morning. Ave Maria, what are those bottles? I can't figure that out. What is that? A bottle? A vacuum cleaner? A cup? This is an optical illusion going on. Figure out life. Jamie Step Dojo, tamping, huh? When he said tamping, where you're like, yeah, tamping. That's what I thought. I thought of you. When he said tamping, I was like, yeah, tamping. Jamie Step Dojo's a, yeah. Okay, remember, Tarun says, subscribe, like, and hit the bell notifications on YouTube today.